Ladies and gentlemen, with us today is Eric Gislason, former KSTP TV sports reporter, now an independent owner of a marketing business. Eric, tell us a little bit about, by the way, welcome. Nice to have you with us
Denny,
today.
thanks for having us.
And you're here specifically because of your work along with Mike Griak on Town Ball Uniquely Minnesota. But why don't you tell us just a little bit about what are you doing nowadays? You're not a KSTP anymore. Give us a little idea.
Well, we're still, thanks for having us here, by the way. Great day at Chaska. And state tournament's unreal. It's fun to be back and not have to have the rigors of a camera crew and be working it, kind of just enjoying it,
Good.
Except for that horrible first pitch.
Well, you got it close, Eric.
Well, it was a one-hopper, and the catcher did a great job going down in the dirt. But to answer your questions, Denny, we're still in the storytelling business, and we range from documentary work to business media to communications to marketing, and it's a small firm, but storytelling would be the operative word, because once a storyteller, always a storyteller.
Absolutely.
And that's where Town Ball Uniquely Minnesota came in.
Let's talk about that. Town Ball Uniquely Minnesota is an incredible story. It's an 8-episode series, Emmy nominated, is that right?
It was.
And this is a series that tells the whole story, or a really big story about Town Ball Uniquely Minnesota. Can you talk a little bit about how did you and Mike Griak, is that right?
Sure.
How did the two of you get started with this idea? You hear about it started on a napkin or something, but give us a little bit of history of how it began.
Well, oddly, there were some discussions here, but ironically, Mike and I came to this ballpark before we even rolled one frame of video, and had a discussion about, like, this is a unique thing. This is a neat deal. It's unique to Minnesota. You can't explain it. It's going to take a long time. We said, should it be 1 hour? Should it be 2 hours? Should it be 3 hours? We thought 4 hours we'll be able to get everything in for sure. And sure enough, we were wrong. As the town ball world and the town team communities opened up, we were like, holy smokes. But Mike was a tremendous baseball aficionado, still is. And I knew some people in Minnesota, and Mike knew some people in Minnesota. We put our heads together and made a rock pile.
Good. Now, you broke it down into eventually 8 different segments.
We did.
Can you talk about what were the segments that were especially inspirational,
no
if you will,
run,
for you?
Well, some of the just aesthetically favorites of mine would have to be just the episode on pristine places, our ballparks. The ballparks in Minnesota are second to none. They're world-renowned, not only nationally renowned, but world-renowned. We were receiving emails from across the globe that they saw these ballparks. So I would say ballparks are a really fun story. Butchers, bakers, candlesticks makers were a fun episode because, as you well know in town ball, you might have doctors, you might have lawyers, you might have welders, you might have farmers, you might have butchers, bakers, or candlestick makers who make these teams up, and the people in the communities behind them is such a melting pot. It was fascinating.
That's neat. That's neat. Now, I saw all the episodes, and they were aired on Fox Sports North. You went out and got sponsors for this, obviously. Just talk a little bit about some of the sponsors. I know Cambria was in there. Who else was in there? Do you know?
Yeah, Cambria was in. Marty Davis, the Davis family, a huge town ball background. Down south in St. Peter, Le Sueur, and Minnetonka. We had Dave Lensmeyer from Stickney Hill Dairy.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And Dave was an old Pearl Lake Laker out of Kimball. His parents were dairy farmers. And we had Hormel out of Austin, again, deeply rooted in we had KLN Family Brands up in Perham, owned by the Nelson family, Charlie Nelson now, and Kenny Nelson, his father. Long lines of baseball lineage. And Dan Olson, we have a State Farm agent here from Monticello in town who happens to be my best friend, but Ole's a huge baseball backer. So we were fortunate and blessed enough to find people that were involved in baseball and communities, which was what town ball is all about.
You, one of the episodes you talked with some of the pro players, people who had played town ball, eventually became pro players. Talk just a little bit about how did you find them, how did you reach out to them, and what was that like?
Well, they were very well documented in their bright lights and big stage careers, MLB, the Terry Steinbachs, the Dana Kickers, names elude me now, but you know, these guys were in people's living rooms on TV, but what many people didn't know is that they started in ballparks like this, and they went back to ballparks like this. You know, you're talking about Eisenreichs, you're talking about
Chris Kost up in Moorhead.
Chris Coast up in Moorhead, and all those guys, and World Series champion, by the way.
Yes.
Steiny World Series champion, but to a man, Denny, the interesting part was, of all of my baseball accomplishments, town ball was my favorite. And town ball remains my favorite. And these are World Series champions telling you that. So that tells you the caliber and the place in their hearts.
And that in itself contributes to the unique nature of town ball in Minnesota.
It does. It's very humble. It's very grassroots. It obviously going to save you a bee sting here.
Thank you.
It takes a village, the communities and the players and the volunteers, the NBA. A special thanks to the NBA. Minnesota Baseball Association was on board from day one and still is very interested and active. And it was just a marriage made in heaven and a perfect storm. And hopefully, people remember it.
Let's do one last question, Eric. So, town ball, uniquely Minnesota, told a great story, but you said you left a lot of film on the cutting room floor. What would it take for a town ball 2 to occur? And have you thought about that?
Death threats?
Consider this a death threat?
Well, it's funny walking in here today, the common question was, when's the next series? When's the next 2.0? And honestly, I don't have an answer to that. Yes, we have stuff on the cutting room floor. Mike and I have not talking about that, but I guess it would be generated by interest. It's not cheap to do this. It's not. You're not going to the Madison Avenue when you do one. But it was a story worth telling, and we'd do it again in a heartbeat if the stars align. How's that for a political answer?
That's a good evasive answer, Eric. I just want to say, on behalf of all of us who enjoy town ball, who just loved the series, and I know it's still available
on Amazon.
Amazon, right? So if anybody hasn't seen it, look up Town Ball Uniquely Minnesota. I just want to say thanks to you and to Mike and your entire production team. You gave us a great gift in 2019. Thank you very much.
Well, it was an honor to do it, and it's a story that needed to be told, and Mike and I were glad and fortunate to tell it. So Thank you for your wonderful reception.
Thanks, Eric.
All right.